All right. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be in Luke. All right, so that's the third gospel in the New Testament. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I've enjoyed these 3 weeks that we've kind of put together here, because we're actually hitting. It feels like a 3-week period of the beginning of Jesus' ministry, right? And so it's very like each sermon has kind of followed exactly what's happening between John the Baptist, Jesus, and the beginning of his ministry, okay? So let's just pick up in Luke chapter 5, verse 1. Let's go. One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people, I practiced saying that 3 times this morning before I got up here, they were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. And he saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. And so it's probably early in the morning, right? Because they're because they're done fishing and they're cleaning their nets. It's maybe the cool of the morning. People are still out. Jesus is teaching, and he sees these 2 boats. And it says, verse 3 says, he got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And I don't know if you've ever hung out around boat docks, but it is generally not a good idea just to walk onto somebody's boat, right? It's just generally not a thing that happens. And so, but I love that Jesus uses, he just uses other people's stuff, right? And I don't know, I imagine there's not a dock, like a built dock, like we kind of imagine, probably just beached these boats, but they're cleaning. And I think one of the things that runs throughout Scripture that we're going to go over and over and over again, as long as you let me stand up here and do this, is that we're blessed in order that we could be a blessing, that what we have has been given to us so that we could help others and be there for those that are in need. And that everything that we have, everything I have, everything that you have is a gift, right? That you have, it's been given to you by God, right? It says that in 1 Chronicles. I know you spent a lot of time in Chronicles, but I'll read it again. Chapter 29, verse 14, it says, "But who am I? And who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this?" They're building the temple, I think, at this point. It says, "Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are foreigners and strangers in your sight, as were all our ancestors. Our days on earth are like a shadow without hope. Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you." There was I loved this. I was with Ashley, my wife, in the front row. We were at a church. And the pastor got up and he was telling a story, and he said, I think he was at church, and his car got stolen while they're at church. And he goes out, and the car's gone, and the people sitting there were kind of like, well, what are you gonna do? So he just started praying. God, they took your car. I don't know what you're going to do about it, but it's your car. Right? I mean, it's a different way of thinking about it. Like, you just stole God's car, not mine. Like, you're in trouble. Like, I don't have to deal with that. Like, it's a different way to think about the things that we have. And so he's talking about giving back what has already been given you. It's like, have you ever let your kids, like when your kids buy you something? It's kind of like that. Where'd you get the money? Oh, yeah. I bought me something through you. Right? So when you let your kids spend the money, it's really about teaching them something, not actually about you getting something. You could have bought that. Yeah, you can say thank you, and it is what it is. So there's a lesson in that, and that's what we're talking about. That everything that we have is a gift that we've been given to manage. And what's the pushback then? The pushback is, well, no, I worked hard. I work hard for what I have. I deserve what I have. And I wake up every day, and I go to work, and I put in the time, and I do that. And do you feel that? Because I think in Deuteronomy, this sounds familiar. Verse 17, it says, "You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me." That's what we're just saying, right? But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you even the ability to produce what you have. Right? So even when we want to get into our heads about all the things that, I worked for this, and I strived for that, and I tried, and I got this, and it's still going, yeah, your breath was given by God. Your ability to do any of that is given by God. And so, listen, we're blessed. And so Jesus actually gets in the boat because it's his boat, right? It's his boat. And so he gets in, and the idea is that, again, we're called to be a blessing and use our blessings for others. That is a core tenet of who we're going to be. I think it's a core tenet of Christianity in general. But here, for us, that's who we're going to be, a people that are a blessing. So let's keep going. Luke chapter 5, verse 4. It says, when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. So now, this is not a simple request. Have you ever left something at work and you're only like around the block and you're still like not going back for it? Yeah, right? It's like, and I just did this the other day. It's like, unless it's a Friday and it's my wallet, right? I'm not going back for it, right? It's like, I need my wallet. But this idea of, he's asked these disciples, I know you just had a hard night. I know you were fishing all night long and you caught nothing. But let's go try again, even when it's a time when no one fishes. Right? He's like you can imagine them. They're like, Jesus, listen, you're a teacher. You do good teaching. I'm a fisherman. Maybe not a great one, all right, by the catch we just made. Maybe not great, but we don't fish in the morning. We fish at night. We clean in the morning, right, and then we rest. Let's look at his response. Where we go? I'm having a hard time keeping track of my stuff today. Let me backstep. We do not serve a God who is always worried about your convenience. Right? God is not necessarily worried about your convenience. And that's what he's asked. He's like, this is going to be inconvenient for you. Like, I just want you to do this because I'm asking it, and I have a plan. Right? He doesn't tell him the plan. He goes, let's just go try fishing when no one else fishes, and let's see what happens. And so a lot of the Christian life, and it's really an image of the Christian life, because a lot of it is about God hijacking your plans. Anybody? You got a plan, right? You know what you're going to do. It's what Jeremiah 29:11, right? For I know the plans I have for me, declares me. Plans to binge watch that 90s show and go mudding all summer, right? Is that not in there? Is that not what it says? That's not what it says. Okay. No, but it's Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. I got a lot of plans. And I go about them. They get hijacked. And you find it all throughout Scripture. Abraham, called to leave his home. That's 75 years old. I think he had plans probably to do nothing, right? It's like, no, you got to leave your home and start a whole new community. Noah, I know there's no water, but if you want to build a boat, that'd be great, right? Wasn't in my plans today, God. Joseph went to tattle and was planned on being the younger brother, sold into slavery by his brothers. Not his plan, right? Jonah, that's a story of not following and sticking to your plan even when God tries to hijack it. That didn't go well. Joseph, just trying to get married. Now you're the stepdad of God. Enjoy that, right? Good luck with that. You see, you got a plan. You can have a plan, but it gets hijacked. Paul was on his way to Damascus to arrest Christians, to put them in jail, to have them stoned or even killed. And Jesus meets him on the road, and he hijacks the plan. Listen, it's just a constant theme through the life of a Christian, through the life of a follower of God. He's got a plan, and he's going to share it with you when he wants to, and he's just going to move the things the way around that he needs to move them, and we just have to be receptive and open to the possibility that, listen, my plan might not happen. And so serving, and so we have to understand serving, when we're serving others and we're serving our community, it comes at a cost, right? We said at first, Peter, right? He's like, well, it cost me my boat for a few hours, right? It's going to cost you likely, maybe not likely, but it could cost you the thing that you don't like to give up, because what God's actually trying to do with those things is to form you into him. So when we start to grip tightly with our time, there's going to be opportunities for you to donate your time. When you start to get stingy with your finances, there's going to be opportunities that God provides for you to stretch that gift of giving. When it's really just your talents, and you're going, we're called, we're serving. When we're serving, it's about giving of those things, our time, talents, and treasures. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Julia was talking about this during announcements. We have at least 3 opportunities to serve for Habitat for Humanity in the next 6 months, all right? And I'm not going to go over this like every time, but they're putting a lot of single moms in their own homes. And I mean, if you want to change a community, it's really about lifting up parents who are struggling and giving kids a safe place, right? A solid place, a stable place, right? I love what they're doing, and that's why we're going to be so involved with them. So those opportunities are going to be there. They don't cost you anything but your time, all right? Nothing but your time. And so it's going to be more than 2 hours of your week, that week, you know? So it's like we're going to go out and serve. We're going to donate our time. And there's going to be, we have a lot of, who remembers the snow cone thing, right? We did? All right. We gave away, a countless amount of snow cones, right? But we have all these different booths that we're going to have all summer long in our community. Listen, you got to ask Peggy. There's a lot of work. And the more hands that we have, the easier that we can do this, and we can just love some people. But listen, it's going to cost you your time. And so it's about stretching that muscle of giving of ourselves. And so, but that's just who we're going to be. It's going to be a normal thing. 'Cause my hope is that within the next few years, that anytime someone goes downtown to any event, they go, "Where's the Methodist tent?" You know, they're always doing something. There's always energy. They're always just giving stuff away. They're always just loving on us. Like, well, it's got to find them first, right? And so that's what we're talking about. Let's keep going. Luke chapter 5, verse 5. And so Simon answered. This was Simon's answer. He says, "We've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." First off, I love that you can whine to Jesus. Come on. That's great, right? Because how often? Because sometimes you're like, with my kids, like I'm also like have a good attitude too, right? Or you're grounded, right? So there's this God's big enough to handle your complaints, and so even in the midst of this, there's this conversation. Goes, "Listen, Jesus, you're wrong about this, but I'm gonna do it." You know, it's like I don't think this is gonna work. I don't trust any of this is gonna happen. I'm just gonna do it because you asked me to, and that's really where he's at with it. It's like, we were just out there. There's no fish. Because part of it is it's stressing the yes muscle to Jesus, right? There's a yes. Remember the movie Yes Man? Anybody? So it's Jim Carrey, right? And so the whole idea is like he goes to some guru and they hypnotize him, and he has to say yes to like every opportunity that was presented to himself. But the idea is because he had been stuck in a rut, right? His life is just kind of like blah. And it's because we're not saying yes to things. Like there's some things that God's calling us to, and we're just going, maybe later, maybe not. You know, I could help in the nursery, or I could help with that, or it could be at this. And it's like, you got to stretch. You just got to just say yes to something and see what happens, right? You never know what's going to happen. And that's what's happening here. Is I don't want to fish. But yes. And it's like how many times when you think that you've been reluctant to do something and then turn around and go, man, I'm glad I did that. Man, I didn't want to get up this morning and show up to that thing. But wow, God showed up. You know? Like stretching that yes muscle. And so verse 6, it says, when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. And so they signaled their partners in the other boats to come and help them, and they came and filled the boat so full that they began to sink. Can you imagine the looks on everyone's faces? When Peter goes, hey guys, we're going to go out to fish. We just did that, but okay. Throw the nets out. And it's not just a catch. It's not just a big catch. It's like the biggest catch, right? One that they can't even manage on their own, right? So Peter, something happens to Peter where he becomes aware that this isn't about fish anymore. Like this something else is happening. And so it says in verse 8, it says, when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken, and so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. And so it's clear to them that Jesus is way more than they thought he was. And I don't know if you've ever, and so there's these things that happen in scriptures, like when you come face to face with who God is, or when you kind of realize who God is, there is you become aware of how broken you are. And that's what's happening to Peter. And actually you can see it in Isaiah 6, verse 5. This is, Isaiah meets the kind of the presence of God. It says, woe to me, I'm ruined. For I'm a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Or Revelation 1, this is John writing. He says, when I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. And then he placed his right hand on me and said, do not be afraid, I am the first and the last. And it's like when you have those woe God moments, when you realize that God is so much more than you thought he was. I don't know if you've had that moment. And it doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian. There's moments where you go, oh, wow, God did that. I've been working with a guy named Marty, and he's maybe one of the best insulators in the business. All right, I know if you don't know a lot about insulation, it doesn't matter. Just stay with me. And so we're working on this roof of these Myers gas stations, and this was just last week, and he comes and we're working on it, and man, I'm just having an awful time. Right? It's just I'm working and it's not working well. Like I'm not happy. I've started over 3 times. The day is not going well. And so I walk over to his area to complain, and his stuff is just gorgeous. Right? His work is just perfect. It's immaculate. It's everything that it could be. And I go, Marty, I quit. I quit. Like I can't do that. Like I don't have have you ever run into somebody that does something so well that it just makes you want to just not do it anymore? Like that's so it's a smaller version of what's happening to Peter on this boat. He's going, I don't even know why you're on this boat with me. I don't know why you even associate with me. I don't want people to look at me and look at you, because I look like I'm nothing compared to you. Right? That's what's happening on this boat. There's a realization of his brokenness. And that's what you have to have that at some point in your life where you go, okay, I'm not as awesome as I think I am. I'm just not, right? And when you look at God, when you get close to God, when you pray, right, he reveals that to you. He reveals your brokenness, the areas that we need to improve in. So verse 10, it says this, then Jesus said to Simon, don't be afraid, right? It sounds just like what John wrote in Revelation 1. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people. And so they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. Notice Jesus didn't try to make him feel better about himself, right? Because we like that. Like, I like that. Like when I went over to Marty about my project, he come back over to mine, and he goes, oh, it's not that bad. I know he's lying. He knows he's lying. Like, everyone knows you're lying. Like, you're not helping anybody, right? But it's like, no, it's garbage, right? And so you have to, understand that, and that's what's going on here. He's just going, yeah, but follow me. And Marty came over and in 5 seconds fixed my whole project. I learned something. I followed him, right? And so Jesus is like, listen, just follow me. I know you're broken. That's actually why I'm here. It's not in spite of, it's because of your brokenness that I'm here. And so my big takeaway from this passage is that Jesus begins small with these guys. He really does. And this is how discipleship works. Because I grew up in a world where you have a message, and then you come down to the altar, and you get saved, and then the pastors go out to dinner or lunch, and they talk about how many people raised their hand, or how many people came to an altar, or how many people. And it's like that was the idea of discipleship. Like, we're making Christians by just getting people to say a prayer. And I don't see that here. I actually don't see it in Jesus' ministry, where he says, if you want to follow me, you got to say these words, or you got to do this or this. It's just, come on, see what happens. Just step into this. Be a part of this. Find out how this goes. You can weigh this out. Like, asking someone, we'll get to it. Just hang with me. Because listen, if someone came in here today, and we opened with John 6. I think I put this up there. Did I put this up there? Yeah. We opened with this. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me and I in them. He said this while teaching in the synagogue of Capernaum. On hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed. You see how there's a gap between, hey, go catch some fish, and now I need you to understand the Lord's Supper, and that I'm going to die, and that you're going to, it's not going to be easy, that you're going to be persecuted. Like, they didn't sign up for that at the beginning. They just kind of walked in and just kept seeing Jesus reveal himself over and over to them, and taking another step and another step. And it's like, so if you're not where you think you need to be as a Christian, listen, just keep walking, right? Just keep walking with Jesus. And following him and serving, and like, it's just that whole, stay in your Bible, stay in prayer, just it's a daily walk. And it's really, like I said, it's the opposite of what I grew up with. So Jesus is like, being a disciple is not easy. Looking at all the people, because when he says that, he's looking at all these crowds of people. Right? Because there's always crowds around Jesus. And I wonder if he just looks at the crowd and goes, a lot of these folks are going to leave when this gets hard. Even the ones closest. He knows even Peter is going to abandon him in his hardest moments. So you're not going to nail this, right? You agree with that? You're not going to nail this. And so the question has to become, are you willing to do what God's calling you to do? Let me close with this passage in chapter Luke 14. You don't have it up there. I just got it here. It says, large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sister, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. So like I said, that's the opposite of the way that I grew up. Jesus says being a disciple is not easy. Looking at all the people, knowing even the closest ones would abandon him. It's like, I know it's entertaining, and like Jesus had all this, it had to be a blast to be around him. I mean, he's just healing people, feeding people, teaching people. I mean, it was a rock show everywhere Jesus went. Everyone wanted to be around him. I think the question becomes, are you willing, if you're a disciple, right? If you kind of move from, I'm seeking this thing out. I'm looking at it. I'm not sure about it. If you moved into discipleship, like you want to be a follower of Jesus, are you willing to take the bad with the good? That's the real question. If your prayers never get a yes, are you still with him? If it costs your time, your talents, or your treasures, if it costs you more than 2 hours a week, are you with him? And so my hope is going forward that this idea of being a Christian, of being a disciple, that we create a safe space here for you to be able to go and say, hey, I want you to just check it out. I'm not asking you to do anything crazy. No one's gonna come lay hands on you. No one's gonna fall out. Like, it's not gonna be crazy here. You're just gonna show up and you're just gonna hear about Jesus, right? That's a lot of fishers of men. That's what you're gonna be, fishers of men, and that just means going out and bringing them in. And so that's what we're gonna do all the time. This is who we are gonna be, people that go out, bring people and say, you got to check him out. You got to check Jesus out. If you've been hurt by church, we were just talking about this earlier. If you've been hurt by church, I'm sorry. It's never supposed to be that way. This will be a safe place for those folks too. You can say, listen, I know it didn't go the way you thought it was. I know people didn't act the way that you thought they were supposed to act, and it doesn't look like Jesus at all. This is the place where we're going to try our best. We're not going to nail it, right? But we're going to do our best to look like Jesus as much as possible. Love you, church.